welcome to another episode of Data Gurus. This is Sima Vasa, your host. I'm excited to welcome uh, Beth Finn, CEO of Directions Group. Welcome, Beth.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Sima. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited for you to be here. I love your story from when you started. I don't know the very beginning of your career, but just watching you from afar, and then most recently being appointed CEO. But just for the listeners, could you give us a little bit of background in terms of how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, sure. I love this as an opener, right? And it requires you to sort of think back.
Yeah.
I would say I've probably stumbled into the market research industry. I think as many of us have.
Yes.
Um, but it really all started actually the summer before my senior year of college. I was a marketing major and I was very interested in potentially going into like retail marketing. And I landed an internship at the time with Sears,
Okay.
which was in a very different market position back then
Yes.
than it is today. And so I landed that as an internship. Well, I ended up showing up on my first day and they actually had me, it was more of an internship for store manager versus a marketing and corporate
Got
internship.
it. Yep.
So I showed up my first day and then decided I was not going to return my second day because that was the career path that I was interested in. And I randomly got assigned through a temp agency a summer role at Catalina Marketing. And
Oh, wow.
yes, and
That's so
I
cool.
was backfilling for a woman on maternity leave,
Okay.
and I was responsible for helping at the time their team set up all of the retailer programs. And
Okay.
so it was my first entry point of really understanding, you know, tracking what people are buying in stores and
Mhm.
seeing from the retailer's perspective, how do they drive loyalty and trips and how do they at the time I didn't know it, but how do they build the basket through different, programmatic marketing. And so it really became an entry point, but also served as a growing interest that this was actually a career and a field that I could go into. And then fast forward, the first part of my career has been spent at the syndicated side. I started with Nielsen, at
Okay.
the time servicing the Kraft and Miller accounts.
Nice.
And I was fortunate enough that Nielsen really placed a strong emphasis on like developing foundational skills,
Yeah.
really investing in, their bench strength. And so was able to get, I feel like, a lot of the foundational client servicing, professional skills during my time at Nielsen. I then went to IRI where I was at. So good, like I said, half of
Great
my career
experience. Yeah.
was all on the syndicated research
Right.
side. And then I decided to make the leap into more primary custom research and held positions at Market Tools and Kantar. And then in about 2016, I got a call from at the time the CEO of Directions. Directions was not on my radar, but I started to do some informal research with my network and they just had an amazing reputation with both clients as well as, within the industry. There just wasn't as well known as some of the other brands that I had worked for or knew of in the marketplace. But it presented an interesting opportunity, which was to really help them develop their retail and shopper practice. They saw that as a growth opportunity, a space and place that they weren't really playing in with a high degree of like penetration and credibility. So I was brought in to really build up that practice area and had success. Went on to manage more of a full team, really focused on travel and hospitality. And then, as serendipitous as we all have those moments in time, I came to lead the entire sales organization or the entire
Fantastic.
relationship lead organization. And then when it came time for our current CEO to retire, we are privately held. So our ownership group and the board went about deciding who was going to be the next individual to take over the reins. And I was elected by the board and our ownership group to be the next CEO and president of the Directions Group.
That's amazing,
Yeah,
congratulations.
thank you.
Yeah, that's, I can see it and hear it in your voice, and that you definitely seem very client-centric, and, that goes a long way in your position today to be able to understand needs of clients and translating that into, products and services and solutions that clients need. It's hugely helpful.
And it's interesting because when I was considering the role,
Yeah.
the non-negotiable for me was I didn't wanna be in the office. I wanted to
With
be
clients.
with clients and still have that be a really strong part of my role and responsibility and set of expectations. Because that definitely is a bucket filler for me, is engaging with clients and interacting with them, and it's a little bit challenging to keep that balance in my current role, right? But it definitely has been incorporated into, you know, our strategy and our playbook and where we're placing our priorities is really listening to our clients and listening to the marketplace.
That's fantastic. Just curious, like, how much time are you out seeing clients versus in the office?
Yeah, I try and make it a point to every single month have like an in-person client connection,
Yeah.
whether that's lunch, whether that's a more formal top to top.
Right.
I will say I've been successful in achieving that. Most months, it's probably twice a month that I'm engaging with clients again in different capacities.
Sure. Yeah.
So I've been able to keep that balance pretty healthy
Yeah.
for me because I think I would probably go crazy if 5 days a week I was in the office and not out in the field, like, with
Yeah.
clients. I also think it helps just bringing credibility, like, so often senior management is accused of, like, not
Ivory tower.
knowing
Yeah.
not knowing what's going on and being disconnected, and so I think, being shoulder to shoulder with our client relationship teams
Yeah.
and hearing directly from clients, like, what's working, what's not working, has also been valuable just in establishing that credibility that,
Yeah.
like, I am in the trenches with you all, and I do
Yeah.
know what's going on.
It's a huge differentiator. So you've been in the role for since
Since October,
okay.
yes. So 9 months, it feels somewhat sometimes like 9 years, but 9 to 10 months?
And what are some of the things that key decisions you've made since you've, uh, taken the helm?
Yeah. I would say when I took over, there wasn't necessarily an established playbook that
Okay.
I was asked to run, which is both exciting and scary at the
Yes.
same time.
Yeah.
So really coming in and doing a thorough assessment, formulating what is our strategic plan, what are our
Mhm.
imperatives, what are going to be our growth objectives and priorities for the year, and then pulling together that actual plan that supports that. So getting all that in place has been a really significant lift, but something that was, lacking within the
Yeah.
organization. And so establishing that and then sticking to the plan, it's been interesting to see, so often we wanna just say, "Oh, it doesn't feel like it's working. Let's try something else." We've been really disciplined around establishing what are the signals and cues that tell us the plan is working or that we
Yeah.
need to tweak or pivot from the plan. So that's been one. I think, you mentioned talking about AI. I
Yeah.
think incorporating AI into the business has
Mm.
been, a pretty significant change, just even from adoption, but also just approaching the business from an AI first mindset. This
Okay.
isn't about applying it to as an add on to our
Right.
existing workflows, but
Yeah.
rather, how would we approach this if we didn't have any existing workflows or
Right.
frameworks?
So kind of innovating separately and trying to say, if we had to reestablish what we were gonna do, let's do it with AI at the center of it.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, so it's not just like, what can we automate or what can make
Yeah.
it faster, but really like, how do we redesign this approach or how do we
Right.
rethink this way of working or this organization with that AI first mindset?
Yeah.
And I'm a big believer in if you want different results and outcomes,
Mm.
you have to make different decisions.
Yeah.
And so that's been, my philosophy in coming in.
I think it's so interesting in that approach. I think, as you know, I talk to a lot of CEOs, and everybody has different flavors of how they're going to approach it. Some is incremental. Let's try a little bit here. Let's see if it works. Test, refine, test, refine. Your approach is, let's start from scratch in some ways and figure out if we put AI as a heartbeat, what
Mhm.
happens. That's a major cultural shift in terms of getting buy-in and getting people to say, "Yeah, that's a good idea." Um, what was your experience in doing that?
Yeah, I think it started with being very transparent on current state of the business and here's where we're at and really leaning into the why. It sounds
Yeah,
cliche,
yeah.
but I think sometimes as leaders, we may be hesitant to like fully express the
Why?
why,
Yeah.
right? Because sometimes it shares areas of weakness within the
Sure.
organization or vulnerability in ourselves. But I just really leaned into more transparency versus less,
Yep.
really explaining the why and painting the picture and bringing in almost like what we do with our clients,
Mm,
bringing in outside factors and intel that says, this is why we can't stay in this place anymore. This is why we need to change. Here are the internal signals that we're seeing, but here are the external signals that we're also seeing. So, really just constructing that narrative and then just being diligent about communicating,
focus.
communicating, and communicating. And my head of, my director of Marcoms always says, like, until you're sick of hearing yourself say it, you probably haven't said it enough, and then you need
Yep,
to say it 3 more times.
yeah. My understanding is at least 6 times before they hear it the first time,
Right, exactly.
right? I've heard that you have, created a framework of integrated intelligence. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think it's a reflection of, I think, really where the broader insights and analytics industry is headed. I think historically, the distinction between analytics and research and
Yeah.
secondary research was very siloed, but I think that distinction is eroding. And I think it's recognition that firms, partners that can start to unify these and drive velocity in the decision making is what clients are asking for. They may not be asking it for in those terms, but when you hear them say, I have so much data, I have so much information, I don't know what to focus on, I need clarity, what they're saying is, I need somebody who can come in and integrate all these different streams of intel that I have.
Right.
Give me that clarity, give me that foresight, not just tell me what happened in the past, but tell me what's going to happen next,
Sure. Yep.
And so I think integrated intelligence really speaks to the need that we heard in the marketplace,
Yep.
given, all the pieces of intel that people have.
And so are you taking, all the data that not all the data, but the data that the clients share with you, um, assuming a huge percentage is something that you have produced, the company's produced, and integrating the data sets to be able to answer the questions?
Yes, that is our ultimate future
Okay.
state.
Okay.
Certainly, the incorporation of AI makes
Sure.
that much more scalable, way more efficient. Um, but yes, that is, and we really started honestly with even just integrating more primary research,
Yep.
right? Like
That
several years ago. And then it was like, okay, we have a team called the Watch Desk team, which is this always on intel, reviewing market factors that are happening, reviewing signals in the marketplace that impact our CPG clients or our
right.
restaurant clients. And so, it's like taking all these assets, right? Some of which we've owned and produced the insights, some of which our Watch Desk team, which is all the external factors, plus our clients have a lot of information that they collect on their customers, their consumers. And so starting to integrate it all and also recognizing that clients are sitting on a lot of information and they really just need, in some cases, someone to synthesize it
Yeah.
and like pull out those critical insights that will fuel action and
Mm.
fuel desired outcomes.
Are you finding, that there are different resources required to do that, or different skill sets that you have to bring into the company?
Yes, yes, and
Yeah.
both, I think from a tool standpoint, and this is what gets at AI can't just be a bolt on to legacy processes. It has to be a total reimagining
Yeah.
when we work.
Yeah.
And also just, the skill set required.
Sure.
Last year we launched what we called our intelligent solution team. And these are intel leads that are deployed when we have engagements that
Okay.
require somebody to kind of synthesize and make sense of all these different data streams or intel streams. And so we carved out like a specific position.
Wow.
They work alongside our client relationship leads. They work
Okay.
alongside our more traditional, client solution teams such as analytics and
Right.
analysts and project managers. So they kind of sit at that intersection
Yeah.
and they're really strong at just like our analysts are at like storytelling and
Mhm.
working with different data sets. So we recognize that in order to deliver on our integrated intelligence position and
Mhm.
value prop, we not just had to have like the tools that enabled that across the
Mhm.
team, which AI allows for that, but more importantly, that like human critical
Yeah.
thinking overlay. And so that's why we created this carved out position.
And I would imagine also industry knowledge, right? To be
Yes,
able to connect the industry, trends as well.
absolutely. And I think, projecting out, why are clients going to hire firms like R in
Well.
the future? I do think it's going to be somebody to come in that has an unbiased
Mhm.
third party expert perspective. And to gain credibility, you are going to need to know how does that industry operate?
Right.
How does that organization operate within the context of that
Yes.
industry? And that's really the role of our client relationship leads
Okay.
is being those subject matter industry experts that
Yeah.
they can bring in addition to the intel lead to those engagements, to those partnerships with our clients.
There's lots of companies, that, are moving up the value chain, which sounds like you guys are doing that, by adding this other layer of intelligence and industry expertise and, um, not being agnostic, but taking large data sets to be
Mhm.
able to provide answers. There's also companies that are providing agile solutions,
Mm.
quick turn, let me get an answer from my client. And there's companies that do both. And I'm just curious, how do you what's your perspective on that?
Yeah. It's something that fed into our strategy for the year was this whole sort of bifurcation of
Yes.
what's going on in the
Yep.
industry, which you're speaking to. It's like
Yes,
fast,
exactly.
agile.
Yeah.
I need an answer to these three sets of
Yeah.
questions and I need the results,
And it's good enough.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then it's like high end, more
Yes.
like strategic consultancy.
Mhm.
I think if you would have asked me the same question even a year and a half ago, I would have
Yeah.
said, "Oh, we are very much focused on that like high-end strategic consultancy."
Okay.
Now my perspective on it has changed a little bit because
Okay.
I think a firm can effectively operate in both,
Mm.
given AI allows you to deliver speed,
Yes.
quality, and, things at lower cost.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think a firm can be both, and I think in this day and age, they have to be both in order to continue with longevity.
Yeah. And serve the
Mm.
client
A
based on the occasion of research they might need.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly, and
Yeah.
so for a lot of our clients, right, we sit on a large base of intel and
Mhm.
knowledge, and so we can, whether it's be developing some synthetic data sets,
Mhm.
answer those lower risk higher
Mhm.
velocity type of questions where we don't need to go out and do a survey or
Yeah.
conduct a focus group or do some IDIs,
Sure.
then I think that just allows for then better, more efficient, more effective whether it's primary research
Mhm,
or gathering secondary research, to be more focused and
mhm,
more intentional by
mhm.
having the answers to some of those questions in a more faster way.
Awesome. I know, I mean, I think most leaders care about their leadership style and they're very intentional about it. I know, I'm just curious from your perspective, your key principles as it relates to leadership and how that manifests itself in the way you lead.
If I had to put a formal style on it, I've been, I would say, I'm more of a democratic, it's about, but at the end of the day, to me, it's about you pick people in your like core leadership team
Yeah.
because they bring something to the table that maybe you don't or you
Yep.
can't. And
Yep.
A, recognizing that in myself.
Yes.
And 2, I think just doing a ton of listening,
Yeah.
um, listening to you ask a question and listening to others' points of view and creating an environment where people
Mm.
feel able to express their points of view, even if they might not feel that it's necessarily aligned with yours. So
Yeah.
creating a space for disagreement, productive, healthy debate
Right. Yep.
and really just doing a lot of listening.
Yeah.
I feel like when I came into this role, I did a series of, ask me anything where people could submit anonymous questions. So that
Right.
gave me a perspective on what's on top of mind for
What's people
people. What are
thinking
they
about?
thinking? Like
Yeah.
what's keeping them up at night?
Yeah.
Doing listening sessions with our team. I always make it a point in most cases to be the last one to give my opinion. I
Yeah.
wanna hear what other people have to say before I give my opinion
Sure.
on a topic because I don't want my opinion to bias. And again,
Mhm.
I want to create that environment where people feel the freedom to express differing
Mhm.
points of view because that's what makes us better.
Right. Exactly.
If I wanted
Yeah.
all the same 12 points of view, well, I wouldn't need 12 direct
People.
reports.
Yeah, exactly. Fair enough, fair enough. Um, obviously, it's really, I always celebrate when there's another woman in the CEO position. There's we're getting some more, and
Yes.
it's slow moving, but it's getting
Yeah.
there.
I feel
Uh,
like this past year, I feel like there's
yeah.
been, way more female in leadership within our industry
Yes.
than prior years that I can recall.
I agree, I agree. Do you think that there's a different leadership style when it comes to men and women, or is it agnostic of gender and it's just style? Y I don't
Oh, that's a bit of a loaded
I
question.
know, I just said it's a loaded question. You don't have to answer.
Can I plead the 5th on that one?
Yeah,
My
sure.
pass? Do I get a free pass?
Well, okay, let's say it differently.
Yeah.
Um, you have broken a ceiling that, some other women have in the industry, and do you feel a sense of responsibility around that?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Especially because I have 2 daughters, and
Yeah,
so I want them to be able to see what women can do,
yeah,
that there are no boundaries. If you wanna be, you know, a leader or a CEO of a company, if you wanna do another profession that maybe historically has been perceived as male dominated, that
mhm,
you can do that.
mhm.
And I love when my girls like say to their friends, like, oh, my mom's the CEO or my mom's in
Aw,
charge. Like
yeah,
they just have such a feeling of pride and
yeah,
that makes me feel good. But I do have a sense of responsibility. And I don't think I realized it until
yeah,
stepping into this role. And so many women team
yeah,
members came up to me and was like, oh my gosh, it's so inspiring to see, a woman president
wow,
and to see you in this role. And I don't think I realized
yeah,
that until taking over and having,
yeah,
like I said, several team members. I mean, it's crazy to me to think I'm only the 3rd CEO of Directions.
yeah,
The prior 2 were both men,
right? Yeah,
founded by Randy Brooks.
yep,
So I don't wanna ever take it for granted.
yeah, yeah. I think it's interesting for at least from my experience, it's like you work really hard to, continue to elevate your career, And then finally, when you have an opportunity to sit back and maybe not relax, but reflect,
Yeah.
you're like, "Oh, wow, all these people are, like, rooting for me," and they celebrate that you've broken some part of the ceiling and said, "Okay," and then you actually have time to think about the weight of that. Uh,
Yeah.
and it's actually it's really gratifying to be able to give back then.
It is, and I
Yeah.
and I think that whole reflection back because, like you said, we're at least myself, so
Yeah, so
focused on, like,
focused. Yeah.
the finish line, the finish line, the
Yes,
finish line, and so rarely do we look back and,
yes,
"Oh my gosh, we just accomplished that," and sometimes
yes.
it takes others to bring it to our attention or to
Yeah,
elevate it to be like, "Wow, this is actually really an amazing
yeah,
accomplishment."
yeah. Well, I think, for me at least, it's like a good part of your career, a good part of a decade is imposter syndrome, and then you work yourself out of that, and then you're like, you get to the finish line, whatever that line is, and you're like, "Oh, how? Wow, I can now reflect." So, yeah, it's a real thing.
It is, and so is the imposter syndrome. I'm trying to, you know, continue to shed that.
Yes,
We all have
we
it,
all have it. Yeah.
whether it's at work or in our personal life,
Yes.
that imposter syndrome does
Yeah.
tend to pop up at the most inopportune
I
time.
know. I hear you.
Yes.
Yeah. No, we all have it, but I also find that, over time, the voice gets smaller and it's more manageable,
Yeah.
which comes from experience.
Right,
Yeah.
right, and I think that's so true. It's like it gets smaller, but I also think you know how to silence it.
Yes. Yes.
And that comes with time and practice,
Yes.
and those reps are so
Yeah.
important, especially stepping into, my role just, what did we say, 9, 10 months ago,
Yeah.
because I haven't done this before.
Yeah.
And I've encountered some things that, I don't have the reps or the
Right.
experience. So it's been really an interesting ramp up.
Yeah.
And even just last week, I was sitting there and I was like, I'm so used to operating with like this, okay, what's next? And, like I said, I wasn't handed a playbook
Right.
upon, taking over this role. And so it's been, rapid decision making.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so last week I was like, oh, so this is what it feels like when you're not in firefighter mode,
Yeah. You have space.
24/7. Yeah.
Yeah. You have
Yeah.
some space. Beth, I thoroughly enjoyed this
I
conversation.
did too.
I wish you so much success. Wish
Thank
you
you.
be fantastic, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you.
I do as well. Yes. Thank you very much for having me. And I look forward to hearing the podcast and continuing to be a subscriber
All
and
right.
listening. And I
Thank
think
you.
this platform that it's been really I've added it to my repertoire, Seema,
Thank you.
on
I
my
appreciate
Spotify,
that.
on my playlist.
Woo! Thank you
Yes.
so much. All right. Um, take care, and we'll see you soon.
All right, sounds
All right,
good.
take
Thank you
care.
so much.